This is volume 3 of our question and answer videos that we've been answering the questions that come in on our YouTube channel, and we invite anyone to ask a question. Just leave a comment on the video. And this is a little preview of, this is a t-shirt logo that John Pothier and I have been working on, and we're going to have t-shirts very soon, I hope. More on that later. And here's the biggest thing with this video, this series. I didn't know if it was going to be popular in the very beginning. It turned out to be more popular than I ever expected. I've gotten nothing but good comments on it. And so this is the third video in the series, and I expect it can only get better as we share information and other people feel comfortable sharing information. So there's some technical part of it, some safety related, a lot of it painting and polishing, and some questions I haven't thought of yet. And there's a lot of times I don't know the answer. I ask my friends, and usually I get some good responses pretty much right away. Okay, this is our third question and answer video in the series, volume 3. I take questions off of the comments from YouTube people leave on my channel. I try to answer the ones that would have an appropriate answer for many other people that subscribe to our video. We have about 10,000 subscribers, a little over 10,000. So I think that answer would go out to more people, and it's general information about painting and motorcycles, and maybe some things that people think are worth sharing in terms of safety or maintenance or whatever. But it's all about sharing good quality information. So I thought I'd start today's video of information sharing with a question I got just a day or two ago from Stefan. He wanted to know how to polish plexiglass. So what I did is, and again, this channel is about information sharing. To be honest, I don't polish a lot of plexiglass. I can add what I know, but I don't really have some secret polish that's going to make your windshield like a brand new one. But I put it out on my mailing list of friends and people that I normally correspond with, and I got an answer that kept repeating over and over again. A product called NOVUS, Novus 7100. And that's what's good, is to have somebody who's actually used the material and can say, yeah, this is good. Not some salesperson that's getting paid to say, oh yeah, I use this all the time. I brush my teeth with it. Yeah, no. So, Stefan, I have an even better thing, is I've lined up several how-to videos that I really want to do in the near future. One of them will be, and I put it on my list, of polishing plexiglass. If I can get somebody to don't, maybe I'll have to just buy it. Turbo Steve said he might have some of this stuff, or he knows where to get it. I think you get it from Amazon. But it's obviously, if you have a scratched windshield, windshields are expensive. I have a bunch of windshields, but I'm going to paint them. So I'm not going to use the plexiglass part of it. But I can tell you this. This is information, and this is the kind of thing worth sharing. If you think of it this way, like a machine shop, you have a piece of aluminum, a piece of tool steel. The tool steel on a lathe goes to the aluminum, and the aluminum goes away, but the steel stays. Well, that's what polish is. And no matter what grit you use or sandpaper, that makes the paint go away. That's an easy concept to understand. As you take the grit and make it finer and finer and finer and finer. Now the finest grit I have is 6,000. That's Flitz. I've made dedicated Flitz videos. You might want to look one up. My name in quotation marks and the word Flitz, F-L-I-T-Z. And what will happen, you'll see the videos I made for the Flitz company. And they show how to polish aluminum, and Flitz really polishes. And not only that, it protects. And it's something, if you're interested in customizing motorcycles and polishing windshields, like I am, I'm a fanatic for having something nice and clean. Now, in my case, you can't always have, you know, the most expensive bike, the fastest bike, the this, that, the other thing, but at least you can always have the cleanest bike, and that's always my goal. So Stefan, that's the question, the first question of the day. We'll try to address it on a future video, because what I want to do, I want to take a windshield, scratch it, and then go through and try this, try Mother's, try Meguiar's, this stuff. Dale actually gave me some stuff that might work because it's very fine grit. But usually for plexiglass, don't make this mistake. I made this mistake already. I had an air polisher, the kind you hook to a compressor hose, and it was way too high a speed. When you polish, you don't want to build up heat. even paint, you don't want to build up heat. So you want to have this, that's why orbital buffers work so well. You don't want to build up heat, and you always want to move it around. So if you're polishing something with a hand buffer, I guess that would be the way to do it. Keep the buffer moving. Don't let one part get hot, because what happens, you'll melt the plexiglass. About plexiglass, I know the part I just modified, that material would melt. If I held a buffer on it, it would melt very quickly. And if in doubt, buff it by hand. So Stefan, we will have a future video, but I hope that information in the meantime helps. And by the way, your bike looks great, despite the fact there's a lot of snow in Romania still. This is the kind of email, and by the way, thank you everyone who said they enjoy looking at the videos and they enjoy the modifications I did to the MT-09. And by the way, guys, you could do the same thing. It's every step of it is on there. But a guy named Steve, and I don't use last names, sent me a beautiful email, a beautiful comment, that I've inspired him to paint his bike, and he wants to paint it bright orange. Well, there is a guy with an MT-09. I think his channel is it's Two-Wheel Obsession, but I'm not sure. I've watched some of his videos. They're very good, excellent. He's a good teacher. He doesn't leave out details. And he has an MT-09 painted bright orange. And if you were looking for how you'd like that color, wow. Now, just keep in mind, if you're painting these modern paints, pretty expensive. So you don't want to like just haphazardly say, yeah, I'll paint it this color or that color. Check it out. Make sure you need the base coat, usually for these bright colors or the pearl colors. Or like the paint I used, the Chromax, that was $309 a quart. But I'm going to be able to paint the whole bike eventually. I still have plenty left over too for these extra parts for the Evil Twin. So if I've inspired somebody to paint their own bike, and I know Stephen Walker in Australia is another one that he watched how I did the wheels and shared some photos with me, had some runs in them. I kind of told him how to take care of that, and he eventually got the tape line on the fairing right. This is information we try to share with our friends, and we do it in a very nice environment. It's a non-political environment. We're not selling anything. We just want to share our passion for motorcycling. Now, I know Stephen Walker in Australia benefited from seeing some of the videos of laying out the tape stripe on the FZR, and that is a very difficult paint job to do. A lot of things have to line up. I hope that helped a lot of people. Okay, so here's a question from Jim, and I've heard this so many times before. This is the kind of question I love to answer on the question and answer videos. And it's from Jim. And he says he paints outdoors. Well, Jim, I paint outdoors too. And there's a downside to painting outdoors. You get dust in the final clear. You know what? The answer is you buff it. And if you approach painting like that, buffing is optional. For instance, if you're going to paint your lawnmower, you get a can of Rust-Oleum, you paint right over the grease and oil and grass. That's a paint job. That is technically a paint job. But if you do what I suggest people do, if you have especially a motorcycle, get as much of the old paint off as you can, put on the appropriate primer, sand the primer, put a base coat on, put clear on, and this is what factories never do, except probably if you buy an $80,000 or $100,000 car. When you think the thing has enough clear, let it dry a couple days, put another coat on. I usually put 3 to 5 coats of clear on, and I put it on in thin layers. So what happens is I have a thick amount of clear on the part. Now what happens? There's going to be dust because I don't have a controlled environment. I don't have the things, a body shop, whatever. Doesn't matter at all. Does not matter at all, because I'm going to sand the final thing with 2000 grit in DASA and polish it with 8065, and it won't matter if you put it on with a mop or a brush as long as you flatten out the top coat of clear and buff it. And so painting outdoors, to me, it's not a big deal. And I've had to do it all my life, basically because nobody died and left me a Jay Leno garage. So if you decide you are coming into an inheritance, we can modify my garage to have a spray booth, but we'll have to use your checkbook or Luciano's. Now there are literally hundreds of videos buffing, painting, and they're all out on the channel, and you just need to do the search with my name in quotation marks and the appropriate subject. They'll come right up. Okay, this is a really good tip, and this is the kind I love to share from people that leave these comments on my channel. Now it gets to go to everybody. Kevin, He has an MT3, an MT7, and an MT10. You need an MT9 to complete the collection. If you're going to collect salt shakers, you got to collect them all. Well, whatever. I'd like to collect more. I just need that bigger garage. He had a product, ACF 50, for removing salt. And boy, I'll tell you, I'm going to look around for that because pretty much we're at the end of the salt season. But next year's coming, and that salt, if you saw what that salt, when you don't take it off the bottom of the motorcycle and the exhaust, and then a year later you try to get it off. So Kevin, that's the kind of tip we like to share. Information sharing, and something that makes riding motorcycles, modifying them, painting them, or that we can ride safer, ride longer, ride better, or whatever it is, and ride whatever bike you enjoy. If you enjoy a trials bike, a touring bike, a track bike, some people are in love with this brand or that brand. I have a terrible problem. I like them all. And my humble collection is one bike from every 10-year period that I've been involved in motorcycling. And that goes back to the 70s. And I've never owned less than one motorcycle in all that time. Never. So we have a lot of questions, and I'm glad this turned out to be as popular as it did. Now, Turbo Steve brought up, and Turbo Steve has been a really good friend for a long time. I think when he watches my videos, he looks for anything I've left out and has advised me many times in my edits, some things that were wrong, and some of the things I could make better. And some of the things when we were painting the FZ, he had some ideas I actually used, and I thank you, Steve, for sharing. But you have to understand something too, that there's what I do with the videos, and it takes an incredible amount of time, an incredible amount of effort, and the reward you get is when you hear somebody, like we had the person that said, you inspired me to paint my bike. Then I think, wow, all this effort is worthwhile. Now, this is a question from Scott. Scott and I correspond almost on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day. Scott is restoring different motorcycles, and in the course of doing it, he's had a few issues that I've addressed on previous videos. But this is a real simple one, and I think this kind of information we're trying to share. He said the clear, and he's painting indoors. He has a spray booth, and yet the clear tends to pick up, like flypaper, pick up dust from his environment. Well, the only answer to that is, and anytime you use 4-to-1 mix, and it only matters in the clear. It doesn't matter in the primer. If it picks up dust in the primer, it's going to get buried. But that final coat of clear, what you want to always have in that is fast hardener. Fast hardener is going to make the paint dry faster, so it's going to be flypaper a lot shorter of an amount of time. Fast hardener, always. That's the rule. Now, just for general information, hardener for 4-to-1 products usually comes fast, slow, and medium. And believe me, it pays to have the fast hardener if you paint outside or you don't have controlled conditions. Because here's another really good question from a fellow named Gorgon. He was impressed, I guess, or he wouldn't have left a message, of how nice that Valentine, that little box worked out. And it did. It worked out perfect, except for one little thing. I still have a rat's nest of wires in there I have to shorten, and I'm going to probably do that on a rainy day. And that would allow me to put the tire changing kit with the plugs and everything in there. I have to put that in my pocket right now. And it doesn't matter for me because my leather jacket is a loose fit. I purposely bought it loose fit because I ride in the winter when I put another jacket underneath it. And that being able to use that, if you commit to that Valentine thing, and I'm totally committed to it now. I was going to buy a bigger box. I'm not. Taking care of those wires, I think I can do that in one day, and I'll have to be very careful about it. I'll even make a video if I do it, when I do it. And a couple of tips if you have a little box or if you have saddlebags. This is a great tip. You think this is funny, but it's not. Put a $20 bill in a plastic bag. Roll it up and seal it and put it in the bottom of your saddlebag or your tank box. You know what? I was riding and I was about, I think 50, 60 miles from home one day. Went to go buy gas. The bike is empty. The light is on. It's flashing. And it was with the MT-09, by the way. And I reach in my pocket. No wallet. I left the wallet home because I was so excited about riding that day. Now, I don't have a credit card. I don't have cash. And I'm not good at hitchhiking. Guys don't stop and pick me up. I don't have a bunch of young women looking to pick me up to take me hitchhiking. So when I got home and I nursed the bike back home, and with the light flashing that I'm out of gas, and by the way, the MT-09 has an incredible range if you ride it really slow. It's 50 miles a gallon if you're on the gas. But if you ride and at 1/8 throttle and riding a slow lane, I'll bet it was probably maybe 40 miles to actually get home. And I did. I made it home. So, and another thing, the jumper battery. And I know that I bought that battery on purpose so it just fits in my jacket pocket. Now, the only problem with that is when I have the jumper battery and the tire change and stuff, yeah, it would be a lot more convenient to have it somewhere else. But it's still better the day you need that jumper battery, it doesn't feel so big in your pocket. Now, Luciano rescued me with one of those jumper batteries in the middle of the winter. It was 20 degrees out. I was way up north. I immediately went home and got one. And by the way, if you have one, the charging routine, it should be once every 2 months you charge it. I got that info from Rich Peabody, and it has worked well. So, I think this is the best question. And I always like to have a story for every video. I always try to put in a little humor, a little story, a little family stuff, feeding the fish. This came from a guy named Jazzcam. Now, Jazzcam obviously is in Scotland. And he sent me a comment. And he said, this is pretty funny. He said, you're using 14-inch tires, 18-inch tires on 14-inch rims or whatever. But he wanted me to come to Scotland to help him mount his tires. Now, you can actually do this, and he said he's going to try it. With the Gorilla Tape, once you do it once, you really, it doesn't scratch the rim. The only reason I do it that way, it doesn't scratch the rim. I have plenty of friends with tire machines, and I can mount it with spoons. But I don't like having even a scratch in my rim. But anyway, this is the funny story, and you can't make this up. I was in England twice as a guest of Elliott Scott. I was doing model airplane seminars for people, and we were on our way to the hotel where the seminar was going to be. And if I remember right, it was like a typical England day, gloomy, cloudy day. And a whole group of motorcycles passed us. Oh, and they went flying by, Nortons and BSAs and all British stuff and making noise and everything. And they all had one thing in common. Every one of them had hair hanging out the back of his helmet. And I thought, holy mackerel, it's a girls' gang. It's a British girls' gang. Wow. Well, they disappear over the horizon because we're driving like normal speed. Well, we get to where we're going, and holy mackerel, they're in the parking lot. And I look, oh, I want to go look at the motorcycles. Give me a few minutes. And every motorcycle there had the helmet on the side of the motorcycle, and the hair was still hooked to the helmet. So apparently in England, at this time that I was there, and I've been to England twice, it was the trendy thing among outlaw bikers, I guess, to have these Velcro hair things hanging out the back of their bike. And I really wanted to get one, but I haven't found it on the internet yet. Maybe I'll have to just make one. But I think that was pretty cool. And that was a great story. It made the whole seminar complete. And because of my career in model aviation, that spans about 50 years, I got to travel the whole world. And I got to meet some pretty creative and really nice people. Okay, now I got a really nice email from Motofo, I guess. I hope I'm saying these people's names right, because I know, hey, I'm not a young guy with all the hip little things that go on there. But he liked the color blue, and he wanted the paint code. Well, I can write that out, but I can take a picture of it with my phone. If he would send me a phone number, that would be no problem. And this is an important thing. If you get custom mixed paint, especially these $300 a quart paints, and by the way, Dennis at Gavin's mixed it. He just mixed Luciano, the green paint we used on Luciano's tank maybe a month ago. But always, when you get home, before you open a can, cut with a razor the paint code, or take a picture of it with your phone and save it. Because that paint code, the next time you go back, if you need another custom mixed thing with the camera, they charge you for that. It's included in with the price of the paint. If you have the paint code, you're going to save some money. But the whole thing is with paint. When you go to match paint with a camera, it's tricky, and you've got to do it and I brought a part to Gavin's. I know I put this on the video. Took the camera, made the paint match. We looked at it under the light, under fluorescent light. It looks one way. Take that out in the sunlight the same day, assuming it's a sunny day. A lot of times with a pearl color, it'll look a little more pinky red in the sunlight. And boy, is it a compromise. And it's different if you're painting a motorcycle or a car, and there's two parts, and you want to match, like Joe Padula did. We had to match his red. Color right is really good. They're very accurate. You want to put this part on the back and this part on the front, and they're not an exact match. Nobody will know. But if the two fairing parts match, and one is more red, less red, more pearl, less pearl. Now I know as a fact, when Camaro first came out with the green, that green that Mike Kawasaki is, that Camaro green, what would happen? There's a funny thing happens. If you see one in real life, you'll notice it. Every car, everyone painted that color. At certain sun angles, the doors don't come together. There's a curve, and the sun can never hit both of them exactly the same. You've got to go like, right there. But as soon as you move 1/8 of an inch, one looks darker. You move this way, that one looks darker. And it's because of the color, the pearlescent, the metallic in the paint. That's good paint information. And by the way, that saving the paint code is critical, especially with paint so expensive now. And you know, the funny thing is, I don't think it's going to come down in price, to be honest. Now, another good tip, whenever you paint anything, save a little bit of the paint for touch-up. Don't use the last little drop and don't think you're never going to need it. And sometimes having that 1 ounce of paint makes all the difference in the world. Now, this is a comment from Turbo Steve, and he is absolutely right about this. He was commenting on that the radar box in a crash might be a problem, that it'd snag you and hang you onto the bike or drag you along. But it's even worse than that. And I know this as a fact. I've seen this happen. When people have some kind of an accident, or even drop the bike, just a low end, a low side crash, one of the things that can snag you is the mirrors. If you have mirrors that are in, especially in, you're going that way or you're going over that hand, you never know when you're going. You don't get to pick your airline seat when you have a crash. But the whole problem is, the whole motorcycle is a porcupine. There's things sticking out, and you know, I've actually seen people that put spiky things on their bike. Okay, but I'm glad you're riding it and not me. But the whole thing with a bike is, and Steve is right, if you do have some kind of a low side or whatever, everything that you touch is a problem. Everything that has a spike or an angle or a fairing, the worst thing in the world is to crash into the fairing if you have a high windshield. It's all dangerous, let's face it, and that's why we try so hard to make it as safe as possible and wear gear. And every time I see a crash or an accident, somebody who's not wearing gear, so I don't know if the answer to that, if I've had a good answer to that. Now, in conjunction with that, and this is from Stefan. Stefan wanted to know why I don't have those pads on the side that you hook your knee in when you lean off the bike on the MT-09. I had them on the R1. I had them on the FCR. I have them actually hanging on the other side of the garage, right above my old leathers. I have them. And you know what? I took them off. I don't need them. I'm not riding that aggressively anymore. And yeah, they were helpful when you were really like a track day kind of thing. But the way I'm riding the bikes now, and I'm totally softened up my riding style. And I'm trying to, because I ride alone too, I really can't get into high risk stuff. When you're riding all by yourself, you know, and I'm pretty much 90% of the time riding by myself. So those pads would probably be a good idea if I was going to go back and do track days. I'm not. The reality is 76 years old. Track days are a nice memory, but now it's a lot more about just enjoying the beauty of the motorcycle. And again, I always say a beautiful motorcycle is like a beautiful woman. You want to just sit and stare at it and look at it. And my friends that have built model planes for many years know this is true. You'd put the airplane down on the ground and sit it, have a cup of coffee and look at it. Move it a little bit. Oh, it looks good from the back. I do that out. I have to confess, and I know Dallas does it too. Just have a cup of coffee and enjoy the beauty, the styling, the beauty, the paint, the fact that it's so much fun to ride motorcycle. It's fun to fly model planes. There's so many good things in life, but the first thing you have to do is just sit and enjoy them. And when you do something unique like Turbo Steve's Cafe Bike, a big part of the fun is just sitting there and enjoying it, going to the meetups, letting other people woo your bike. But it's all about fun. Now, I always do get questions that I really don't have an answer for. And I had, and I hope I'm saying the gentleman's name correct, Nad Vop, and my apologies if I'm not saying it correctly. He left me a long comment in a foreign language that I don't, to be honest, I don't even know what language it is. But that's okay. I don't speak it. But if you can somehow get a friend to translate it, I'll be sure to answer one-on-one, and I'll actually answer it on the next or future question and answer. Now, another and a good question. This is something really worth sharing. Fellow named Steve, what size compressor do you need to paint? Well, I can be honest with you. In the days of modeling, people used to use an old tire and hook up the compressor to the tire and airbrush things. So in the olden days, I had a reclaimed, I guess, recycled compressor. I still have it too out in the garage. I got to take a picture of this. I'll bet the thing was around, you know, when there were horse-drawn carriages. But anyway, you need air. And if you buy the most modern, I know both Luciano and I bought brand new Harbor Freight compressors, about $100, maybe a little over 100. And they have worked flawlessly. There's no reason not to use them. They don't need any maintenance. There's one trick with a compressor. If you don't do it, you pay the big price. Every single time you use a compressor, vent out all the compressed air, and as you're doing it, rock the compressor. And you'll notice, it looks like a little puffs of steam come out. That's moisture. If you let moisture build up in a tank and just leave that sealed year after year, the whole inside of the tank will be like a motorcycle gas tank. And then what happens, you wind up having fisheye problems. Severe fisheye problem, because that moisture in there makes little globules of stuff that becomes fish eyes. Having a clean tank, totally important. And always leave it unvented when you're not using it, especially if you're not using it all the time. Another good trick, if you have a way of doing it, Joe Adamusco did this. You can put the compressor somewhere else in your house. In our house, you can't do it. But if I could put that compressor up in my bedroom where the air is dry from air heat, there'd be no moisture in it. Well, you can buy a moisture separator and you can do all these other tricky things. But the best thing is to have no moisture in the air at all to begin with. And then run an air line out to where you're going to paint. Well, because it's the air in the compressor that's going to pick up moisture and put those little contaminations into your paint. But even with contaminations and even with fish eyes, if you go into 2000 grit sand it and sand into all those little moon craters and then buff it, the answer at the end of every paint question is always put enough clear on that you can sand out the imperfections, whether only a few or a lot or a little, and then buff it with some polish of your choice, the Meguiar's, the 8065, any of the really good stuff. And that is the best information there is about compressors that I know of. And by the way, I used to have for painting a little they call it a pancake compressor. It's about $30 at Harbor Freight. And there was no reason at all not to use it. It worked fine. So I wanted to thank Jerry, who sent a nice comment. He enjoys riding along. Now, this is even better. If you're at work and somebody's paying your salary and they can think you're selling gefilte fish sandwiches and the boss isn't looking, you click on Windy Video and watch him, do his thing. Well, Jerry, thank you so much. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated. There's somebody who doesn't have a written name, but it's symbols, Asian symbols. So I assume the gentleman is Asian. But the question was in a language. Well, I'm not sure I understand English either. And this is something. He's in Adelaide, Australia. So probably Stephen Walker knows this guy. I don't know. Australia's a big country. Maybe they're on opposite ends. The beauty of YouTube. He's been watching the videos and he says, it's time. I've watched you do it. I'm going to do my own oil changes. Well, go for it. And the worst that can happen, you forget to put the oil in, and you treat yourself to a new bike down at the Adelaide, Australia dealership. No, just kidding around. I know a lot of people, and this is true, and myself included, of course. I'm a little hesitant to try. But you know what? When you have the shop manual, you're a lot more aggressive about doing it. I'm going to get into that very soon. But another little quick one. Robert, I confused this with the gentleman from Scotland, but they both had the same idea. He sent me things. He says, he saw me changing a tire, and he said, you're putting a 17-inch tire on a 16-inch rim because it went on so easily. It goes on easily, the whole thing with tires, and I have so many tire change videos, I get sick of looking at them. And nobody believes you can do that until you show them in real life. They used to go into a dealer and paying 30, 40 bucks, and then, oh man, and then you leave it there, we're busy, pick it up next week. If you learn how to do it, it's not that hard to do, and I have tried religiously not to leave out the steps, because I have to change in the course of a year. I wear out a lot of tires. And not because I'm a good rider, just because I ride a lot and I ride every day for 3 or 4 hours if I can. And the whole thing is, you're going to wear tires out. Especially these, whatever bike you have, it doesn't matter if you have a 250, tires wear out. So, but Robert, it's not trick photography, and you can do it too. And whether you're doing track days or riding on the street or whatever you're doing, it doesn't really matter. We all wear out tires, and it is very convenient to be able to change your own tires. So another email from Gorgon who says something that I have heard before. He loves my sense of humor. Talk to my wife about it. She thinks I have a weird sense of humor. Maybe I do. I don't know. Well, anyway, and I've watched, this is from a place called Cycle Sport Services. Loves the videos over the last 5 years, and I always appreciate those comments because it inspires me to know that the work I'm doing, somebody's, number one, enjoying it. You're at work and you can kill some time, or you're sitting in a parking lot while your wife is shopping, and whatever, you can watch windy videos or whatever, because I know the videos that I make, they're unique. I don't think there's another Windy on YouTube. I don't think there's like 3 or 4 and we're all competing around. I don't think so, because the way I edit video is my own unique thing that's evolved over 10 years. And I don't know how many people have coming up on 2,500 videos. Maybe a few people. Yeah, they haven't contacted me and said we're having a race, so I don't know. And maybe there's somebody with 10,000, I don't know. But anyway, and now this is a nice thing from Dan. He has a Ninja 750 with similar mods. And Dan, I have to tell you, I almost died when I read this. He said he wants to be like me when he's 76. Think that through, Dan. Think that through. I got to tell you the trick. This is a trick. I don't know how many people even know about this. This is called biofreeze. Before you go on a ride, you do your neck, your arms, your legs, wherever your aches and pains are usually. Then you go out on a 4-hour ride, you come back and do it again. That's the secret of being 76. That and aspirin. Okay, and this is Steve from Australia, finished buffing out his bike. He promised to send pictures. Steve, send pictures. Anyway, now, there's one, and I saved this for the end because I thought this was something that I'd want to address in great detail. Now, I got a this is a legitimate question. It's on the inquiries on my channel. He wanted to know the bolt torque for a certain bolt, but he didn't specify which bolt. So I answered him in detail that the way you want to do it, if you want to know the specific bolt torque of any bolt on a bike, what you have to do. And I probably have it right on the tip of my fingers here. I carry this with me when Karen goes somewhere. And I read, these are the shop manuals for the bikes that I own except for the MT-09. So the best one by far, and you can see it's well used, I want to show this. A lot of people don't know this. Now, you buy a motorcycle, especially an older bike. Now, my R1 Yamaha, what I did when I bought the bike, it was the middle of the winter. I got the bike at a considerably less than list price because it was snowing out. And it's a long story anyway. But I said to the guy right at the closing, when you're signing on a dotted line, they add in $50 for this and $50 for that, and you know, a cup of coffee, whatever. I said, you know what I do? I'll sign on a dotted line, just include the shop manual. I want the real Yamaha shop manual. You can see how thick it is. This is the real deal. Now, over the years, I've had the bike 13 years. I replaced the starter. without this manual, no way can anybody replace the starter. There's 1,000 things have to get disconnected. The starter is at the bottom of the motorcycle. You almost can go through the oil pan and get to the starter. But this thing takes you through it step by step by step by step. In fact, I actually had somebody that was replacing the starter in an R1 send me a question, and I referred them to the video, and they couldn't find video 1 of 4. It took 4 videos for me to replace that starter. But on the big R1 in 13 years, that's the only thing had to be replaced. And I'm imagining if you went to a dealer, you'd have to sign on a dotted line and leave your credit card and stuff. But the beautiful thing about having a manual, and again, it's on me. I don't have the manual for the MT-09 yet because I haven't had to do any work on it. Paint, it doesn't count. What's in the manual not only is every step, everything. There's torque settings for every bolt. There's torque settings for every screw. There's more details. And now what I always think, and I do this all the time. In fact, Karen has a doctor appointment this afternoon. I'm not allowed to go in the doctor's appointment while she's in there. Oh, I'll have time to read the manual. I got all these manuals for all the bikes. I keep them with me in the car at all time. So if I have to be somewhere and I have to sit there for a half an hour while they're doing something, well, I got the manuals. But the torque now, well, to finish this up, I left the torque wrench out here. This is my Craftsman torque wrench. I don't show it all the time on the video because it's just boring and redundant. But this, I had this when I was drag racing in the 60s, in the 70s. And I had my first experience with torquing down head bolts and stuff. And I bought a Craftsman wrench. Well, I still have it. And Turbo Steve was looking at it the other day. He said, they're all rusty and everything. But I've been using it for so many years. It's a really good tool. I went and bought a Harbor Freight one. They were inexpensive, under $20. And I said, let me check something. And they were pretty close. Pretty close. So, but I still like this one. I just feel like I'm back in the 60s when I use it. Anyway, I always leave that out on my bench. And that's just one of the things. When you want to know anything about a motorcycle, and believe me, the Yamaha is, I don't know how the other ones are. The other ones are a lot thinner, and they kind of skip over a step once in a while. If I had this book and you said, let's take this down to the barest, every bolt, every torque setting, as long as you had a nice clean workbench and enough tools, and you do, it's step by step, step 1, step 2. I don't know how you could go wrong, and it gives you all the torque settings. So invaluable, and the day I get my MT manual, I'll tell everybody where I got it and brag about it and everything. But anyway, we did, and let me just finish this up with one final thought. I answered a lot of questions today. I tried not to miss anybody. If I've missed somebody, my apologies. And I do record them on a daily basis, and I try to record them accurately, but we're going to start with video 4 now. These questions are going to go on a back burner. I save all the questions, so years from now, what's going to happen? Somebody may say, hey, you said this, or yeah, well, if I did and I'm wrong, well, it can happen, believe me. Ask Karen. But anyway, thank you one and all to the people that sent questions in. We're trying to share the information. I'm really not putting 17-inch tires on a 16-inch rim. I really don't have anything expensive here. The one thing that's unique about my environment, a lot of other people that do videos have expensive equipment. There is not a single thing in my shop that I think is overly expensive or high-tech, or it's basic stuff. You need a basic, in my case, a $15 spray gun, a compressor, and an old one is fine. You can paint outside. You need some products, some sandpaper, and the biggest thing you need to do what I do is a passion to do it. So this is the end of volume 3. The way the questions have been coming in, it might not be long, and we'll be doing volume 4. But I think my claim to fame, a lot of people misunderstand what my objective is. My claim to fame is, I think I've shared the information in a very efficient way through YouTube and through my videos that go back to 1987. Now think of 1987 was before there was YouTube. I was shooting video. And I don't know the impact they've had on the world. I don't know if it's good or bad. I hope it's been fun for everybody. But I do have that feeling in the back of my mind that a lot of people might have benefited some from this. I know, here's an example, is Glenn. Glenn and I, the friendship went back many, many years. When he got his first Ducati, and he was painting wheels, and now he's gone on to be a MotoGP champion. And just looking back at these memories that we had, and just the fun we had along the way. And that's one of the things that's special about both motorcycling and model airplanes. You tend to make really close friendships with people that share your passion. And when you go on to have a successful life, you look back and you think, wow, that might have been the best time of my life. You just can't imagine how much fun we've all had. I think everyone that ever was on the A-Team and everyone that ever will be on the A-Team will ultimately have the memories that I think I have of just having a great adventure and at the same time having a wonderful life and being able to share it. So if you enjoyed the video and you enjoyed my commentary and my maybe even my sense of humor, I don't know. Got to check with Karen about that. I do have a humble bike collection of 7 registered bikes, 9 total, and we do try to ride them and we do work on them and we try to come up with creative things that are within everybody's budget and things that are fun and safe riding. Above all, we do share our rides, and I try to share, the main thing I try to share is my passion for it, because without that passion, you're just riding around in circles and burning up your tires. But when you have the passion of riding a motorcycle, flying a plane, or anything you do, golf, tennis, the biggest thing to convince people is you have to have that passion. And thanks so much for watching.